The sun had barely climbed over the tall buildings of downtown Los Angeles, yet the sidewalks were already alive with hurried footsteps, honking cars, and the restless rhythm of a city that rarely paused long enough to breathe. People shuffled past with coffee cups, backpacks, briefcases, each carrying a world of their own. And somewhere between the noise and the movement sat an 7-year-old woman with silver hair tucked beneath a worn knitted scarf, humming a tune only a few seemed to notice. Her name was Lola Estrella. She sat on a piece of cardboard softened by time, her back against the cold brick wall of an abandoned storefront. Beside her stood a small pushcart that held everything she owned, a faded blanket, a few clothes folded neatly, and a little pink backpack decorated with peeling unicorn stickers. That backpack belonged to Mila, her 4-year-old granddaughter. Mila sat cross-legged beside her grandmother, swinging her small legs while drawing circles on the pavement with a broken piece of chalk. Her cheeks were rosy from the morning chill, but her eyes sparkled with the kind of innocence only a child could maintain in such a place. "Lola," Mila whispered, looking up, "is it time to sing yet?" Lola's heart clenched gently. Music had been her safety net when life took everything else away. She looked down at the little girl, her pride and her purpose, and forced a smile despite the ache in her bones. "Yes, Anak," she said softly. "Let's warm the morning." She lifted her trembling hands and began humming the melody she had sung for years, an old Filipino lullaby, one her own mother had sung to her long before the world became different. Harder. Her voice was thin but warm, like a candle flame fighting the wind. Usually, passers-by moved around her without much thought. Some looked away out of discomfort, others didn't look at all. But today something was different. Mila placed her chalk aside and rested her tiny hand on Lola's knee. Then, in a soft, clear voice that floated above the city noise, she began to sing along. Her words were slightly mispronounced, her pitch unpolished, but there was sincerity, pure, untouched sincerity that wrapped itself around the melody like a ribbon. A few people slowed down. A barista leaving a nearby cafe stopped mid-step. A jogger pulled out her earbuds. A man walking his dog paused, tugging gently on the leash. It wasn't just the song, it was the contrast between them, an elderly woman with tired eyes and a small child with a voice so full of life. Lola closed her eyes, letting the sound of Mila's singing wash over her. The child's voice had become her anchor, the thing that reminded her she still had a reason to stand, to fight, to love. Every day was a battle, finding food, staying warm, keeping Mila safe. But in these few minutes of song, all the worries faded into the background, replaced by a quiet sense of peace. The city noise softened around them as though the world had leaned closer to listen. A teenage girl with a skateboard nudged her friend. "Wait. Look at them," she whispered. A couple with matching work badges stopped and exchanged glances, touched by the unexpected tenderness playing out before them. Then, from the other side of the sidewalk, a young man in a denim jacket hesitated. He held a coffee cup in one hand and a phone in the other. Something about Lola's trembling voice blending with Mila's innocent one hit him deeper than he expected. He lifted his phone and for a moment, he simply recorded. Lola didn't notice him. Her eyes remained closed, memories floating through her mind like old photographs, dancing barefoot on her village's bamboo floor, singing in her church choir, rocking her daughter Mila's mother to sleep with the same song. But her daughter was gone now. Life had taken her far too soon, and Lola had found herself left with a toddler and no one else to turn to. She hadn't wanted to leave the Philippines, but she had to chase safety, opportunity, a chance. Instead, she ended up here, lost in a country that didn't always see her, fighting to stay invisible yet praying someone would notice when she needed help the most. When the song ended, Mila looked up expectantly. "Lola, they're looking," she whispered, pointing at the small crowd that had gathered around them. For the first time in weeks, Lola's heart fluttered with something she didn't allow herself to feel often: hope. She met the eyes of a little boy holding his mother's hand. He offered her a shy smile. The mother reached into her purse and dropped a few dollars into the paper cup beside them. Others followed: coins, bills, warm glances. Thank you, Lola murmured, bowing her head slightly with humbled gratitude. The young man in the denim jacket continued recording. When he finally stopped, he approached them. That was beautiful, he said, softly. I've never heard anything like it. Lola smiled timidly. Just an old song, she replied. No, the man said gently, it felt like a story. He asked a few more questions, then walked away quietly, still looking over his shoulder as though unable to shake what he had just witnessed. Minutes passed before Lola whispered to Mila, we should move soon, Anik. The sun is getting hot. But Mila tugged on her grandmother's hand and pointed at the pink backpack. Lola, we sang good today. Lola chuckled softly, her heart warming. Yes, my little star. You always sing good. As they packed their belongings, Mila continued humming the lullaby, swaying gently as she tried to imitate her grandmother's voice. People still glanced from time to time, some curious, some touched, many unaware that they had witnessed something rare, the kind of love that survives despite everything. Later that evening, as the sky turned orange and purple, Lola found a quiet corner near the shelter to settle down. Mila curled into her grandmother's arms. Lola, she murmured sleepily, why do people stop when we sing? Because, Lola whispered, brushing back the child's hair, songs remind people to listen, and sometimes, to feel. She didn't know that, while they drifted to sleep, the video uploaded by the young man was already spreading across the internet, reaching hearts, sparking conversations, and gathering millions of views. She didn't know that by morning, the world would know her name. And she certainly didn't know that it would lead her to the biggest stage on earth. But for now, on that quiet night, with Mila wrapped in her arms, she allowed herself to breathe. Allowed herself to hope. Because sometimes, all it takes is a song sung on a sidewalk by an old woman and a child to change everything. By the time Dawn returned to Los Angeles, the city was already buzzing with something Lola and little Mila knew nothing about. On the other side of town, phones were lighting up, notifications were ringing nonstop, and millions of people were sharing one video. An 7-year-old homeless grandmother singing with her 4-year-old granddaughter on a sidewalk. Their voices, one fragile, one angelic, had pierced through the noise of the internet in a way no one expected. But Lola didn't know. She woke up beneath the shadow of a shelter awning, gently rubbing the sleep from her eyes, her old bones aching from another cold night. She turned to look at Mila, who was still curled up beside her, the tiny pink backpack serving as a pillow. Lola brushed a loose strand of hair from Mila's forehead. Wake up, baby, she whispered. We need to get breakfast before the line gets long. Mila stretched like a kitten, her small arms reaching into the air. Good morning, Lola. Good morning, Anak, Lola replied, kissing her forehead. She gathered their few belongings into the stem pushcart. Nothing about this morning felt unusual to her. She had no reason to expect that the world outside had shifted overnight. But everything had. Online. The world was crying over them. Comment after comment flooded the viral video. This brought me to tears. Someone help them. The little girl is precious. Where are they? I want to donate. That voice, that bond. My heart. And then, hidden between thousands of comments, a special notification appeared for the young man who posted the video. America's Got Talent has replied to your video. Their message was short, but it changed everything. We'd love to find this grandmother and granddaughter. Please DM us if you know how to contact them. The young man didn't hesitate. He instantly sent the location where he filmed them, hoping anyone could find them. Back on the street. A stranger approaches. Lola stood outside a small church that served oatmeal every morning. She held 2 paper bowls, one for herself, one for Mila, but her hands trembled more than usual today. She felt dizzy, tired. Older than she had ever felt before. Lola, look. Mila chirped, pointing to a group of pigeons. Lola smiled. Even in the smallest things, Mila found joy. Just as Lola was about to sit on the curb, a man hurried toward them, the same young man who filmed them the day before. "There you are!" he exclaimed, breathless. Lola blinked in surprise. "You? From yesterday?" "Yes," he said, bending slightly so he could meet her eyes. "Do you know what happened?" He showed her his phone. The video of her and Mila singing. The view count, 19.8 million. Lola's jaw slowly parted. I don't understand." "You've gone viral," he explained. "Millions of people watched your duet. And—" he swallowed, trying to steady his excitement. "And America's Got Talent is looking for you." Lola stared. Blankly, the words taking time to settle. "AGT?" she asked softly. "Yes. The show. They want to invite you. They commented, they messaged me, they want you to come audition." Lola shook her head instinctively. Her fingers tightened around the pushcart handle. "Oh no, hee-ho," she murmured, panic creeping into her voice. "We are not. We cannot. We're just what?" he said kindly. "Homeless," she whispered. Her voice cracked with shame. The man knelt in front of her, lowering his voice. "Ma'am, that's exactly why your story matters. That's why they want you. You touched millions of hearts." Mila tugged boldly at Lola's sleeve. "Lola, what is AGT?" "It's a place where people sing," the man said with a smile. "And you too. You sing beautifully." Mila's eyes widened with childlike excitement. "Lola. We can sing there." But Lola felt her world spinning. She had spent most of her life fading into the background. When you've lived in the shadows, the idea of stepping into the brightest spotlight on earth doesn't feel like a dream. It feels like a threat. "I am too old," she whispered. "Too tired. We have no clothes, no home, no—" "You have your voices," the man said gently. "And each other." Lola looked down at Mila, whose little hand was wrapped around hers. The same hand that had been her only source of strength these past years. "What do we do, Lola?" Mila asked, her voice soft but hopeful. Lola inhaled deeply, her chest rising slowly as the conflict inside her grew. She wanted to say no. She wanted to retreat to safety, even if that safety was a sidewalk. But Mila's eyes. Those big brown eyes that reminded her of her daughter. Those eyes were asking her to try. "Let me help you," the young man said. "I can contact them for you. They want to fly you in. They'll guide you through everything." Lola's lips trembled. "Fly them in? Help them? Why now? Why them?" She felt the weight of every decision she had made since she left the Philippines. The suffering, the fear, the days she went hungry so Mila wouldn't. Had it all led to this moment? Then Mila squeezed her hand and whispered the sentence that broke the wall around Lola's heart. "Lola, we can sing, together." Such a simple phrase, yet it carried the power of a promise. Lola felt warmth spread through her chest as tears gathered in her eyes. She cupped Mila's face gently with her wrinkled hands, her voice trembling. "Yes, Anak, yes, we can." The young man exhaled in relief and smiled. "I'll message them. They're waiting." 20 minutes later. Lola receives the call. For the first time in decades, Lola held a phone that wasn't hers. The young man placed it in her hands, whispering, "They want to talk to you directly." Her heart pounded as she lifted it to her ear. "Hello?" she said. A warm, excited voice answered, "Hi, is this Miss Estrella?" "My name is Caroline. I'm a producer from America's Got Talent. We saw your video. And we would be honored to invite you and your granddaughter to audition." Lola swallowed hard. "But we don't have clothes. We don't have anything." "You have a gift," Caroline said. "And that's all you need. We will take care of everything else." Lola pressed the phone against her chest, overwhelmed. Tears slid down her cheeks, carving soft lines into her weathered skin. Mila tugged her sleeve again. What happened, Lola? Lola crouched to Mila's height and pulled her into a trembling embrace. They want us to sing. On a big stage, she whispered, voice thick with emotion. A very big stage. Mila squealed in delight, throwing her arms around Lola's neck. The city noise faded behind them. For the first time in a long time, the weight of their struggles felt lighter, like someone had finally reached in and lifted it off their shoulders. That night, something magical happens. They slept in the shelter, but the world around them felt different. Warmer. Softer. As if hope had curled itself beside them. Lola watched Mila sleep under a donated blanket, her tiny chest rising and falling peacefully. Maybe this was God's mercy. Maybe this was her daughter's prayer. Maybe this was the miracle they had been waiting for. As the lights dimmed in the shelter and the whispers softened, Lola whispered to the darkness, please, let this be real. And somewhere far away, on the AGT studio computer screen, her name was already typed into the audition list. Estrella and Mila, granddaughter duo. A new journey had begun. The flight to the America's Got Talent audition felt like a dream wrapped in clouds. Lola had never been on a plane before. She held Mila's hand the entire flight, her knuckles turning white each time the plane shook. Mila, on the other hand, giggled every time they hit turbulence, almost as if she thought the plane was learning how to dance. When they landed, a car with tinted windows picked them up. A staff member helped them with their 2 small bags, fresh clothes donated by compassionate viewers who insisted on giving them a chance to stand on stage with dignity. As the car drove them toward the venue, Lola stared out the window, overwhelmed by the skyscrapers and flashing billboards. She felt as though she'd stepped into another universe, one where she didn't belong. But Mila sat on her lap, humming the same lullaby that had changed everything, unaware of how the world had shifted beneath their feet. Are you nervous? Mila asked, swinging her legs. Yes, a knack, Lola whispered truthfully. I'm not. Mila declared, puffing her chest proudly. We will sing good. Lola laughed despite her nerves. Yes, my little star. We will try our best. That was all she wanted, just to try. Arriving at the AGT venue. The car pulled up beside the massive building bearing the glowing America's Got Talent logo. The lights were bright enough to make Lola blink. People waited in long lines, contestants carried instruments, makeup kits, costumes, everyone buzzing with anticipation. As they stepped out of the car, dozens of eyes turned toward them. Some recognized them immediately. Oh my God! That's them. The viral grandma, the little girl, she's so cute. Phones lifted. Cameras clicked. Whispers spread. Lola instinctively stepped closer to Mila, afraid of the attention. For a woman who had spent years being invisible, the sudden spotlight felt too bright, too heavy. A kind staff member rushed over with a warm smile. Miss Estrella. Hi. We're so happy you're here. Come, you'll check in backstage. She led them through a long hallway where the walls were covered with photos of past winners. The bright lights reflected off polished trophies. Performers with painted faces, feathered wings, and musical instruments rushed in every direction. But among all this chaos, Mila walked confidently, holding her Lola's hand with the same assurance she'd shown on the sidewalk. Lola, look. She gasped, pointing at a large sign that said Dream Big. Lola's heart tightened. Yes, she whispered. Dream big. Backstage, the moment before everything. Backstage was buzzing, technicians adjusting lights, producers checking schedules, contestants warming up their voices or stretching for acrobatic acts. Lola was shaking. It wasn't cold, no, it was fear. Her voice wasn't strong anymore. Her breath wasn't steady. What if she stumbled? What if she disappointed Mila? What if she made a fool of herself on national television? A producer approached them with a microphone. "Are you ready?" she asked. Lola opened her mouth to say no, but Mila answered first. "Yes. We ready," she said proudly. The producer laughed, charmed by her confidence. "Okay, sweetheart. You two are up next." The words hit Lola like a wave. Her stomach knotted. Her knees almost buckled. She sank down onto a folding chair and buried her face in her hands. "I can't," she whispered to herself. "I can't do this." But Mila gently climbed onto her lap. "Lola," she said softly, placing her tiny palms on Lola's cheeks, "don't cry. I'm here." Lola breathed shakily. "I am scared, Mila." "I know," Mila replied, nodding as though she understood everything. "But we sing together. I hold your hand. Like always." Lola looked into the child's eyes, the same warm eyes that had carried her through the darkest days. Her heart softened. "Together," she repeated, nodding slowly. "Together." A stagehand lifted the curtain slightly. "You're on in 30 seconds. Walking onto the stage." The stage was a world of blinding light and roaring applause. Lola squinted as she stepped out, holding Mila's hand tightly. The audience filled every seat. Cameras swung toward them. The judges looked up in curiosity. Heidi smiled warmly. Sophia tilted her head, already charmed. Howie leaned forward with interest. And Simon? Simon watched silently, eyes narrowed not in judgment, but in focus. They walked to the center of the stage. "Hello." Heidi greeted. "What are your names?" Lola swallowed hard. "My name is Estrella," she said. Her voice trembled. "And this is my granddaughter, Mila." Mila waved cheerfully. "Hi, everybody." The crowd melted at her innocence. Sophia giggled. "Oh my goodness, she is adorable." Simon leaned closer to his microphone. "And what made you come here today?" Lola hesitated. How could she explain everything? The sidewalk. The struggles. The cold nights. The miracle of a song. She inhaled sharply. We have nothing," she said. Softly. "Except our music. And her." She squeezed Mila's hand. "She is my everything." A hush fell over the room. Even Simon's stern expression softened. "And what will you be performing?" he asked gently. "An old lullaby," Lola replied. "The music begins. And so does the miracle," the first note played. Soft. Slow, familiar. Lola opened her mouth and started the lullaby, but her voice was small, shaky, fragile like thin glass. Some audience members leaned forward, unsure. And then Mila sang. Her voice was sweet, clear, and impossibly pure. It didn't overpower Lola's, it lifted it. Wrapped it. Held it up like two hands holding a candle. Something magical happened. The auditorium fell completely silent. Crew members stopped walking. A judge's pen rolled off the desk without notice. A little girl in the front row reached out to hold her mother's hand. Simon's eyes widened slowly. He whispered something to Howie, words the microphones didn't catch. Lola felt the shift too. She felt her voice steady as Mila's little hand squeezed hers. Together, their voices blended, one weathered by time, one untouched by it. Cracked and innocent. Worn and hopeful. The harmony of two souls who had survived heartbreak, hunger, and loss but never lost each other. By the time they reached the last line, several audience members were wiping tears. Even the lights seemed softer. The final note, Lola and Mila let the final note linger in the air like a prayer, silent, trembling, beautiful. When the music faded, the audience didn't clap immediately. They breathed. Then a thunderstorm of applause erupted. People leapt to their feet. Hands clapped wildly. Some shouted, "Bravo!" Others cried openly. Heidi pressed her hand over her chest. Sophia wiped her eyes. Howie nodded, shaking his head in awe. And Simon? Simon stood up. His expression wasn't just impressed. It was moved. Deeply moved. They had not only sung a lullaby. They had sung their story, their hope, their survival. On the biggest stage in the world fell silent, just to hear them. The climax, a duet that breaks the world's heart asterisk. The applause still thundered through the auditorium, echoing like a heartbeat. Golden light swept across the crowd as they rose to their feet, cheering so loudly that the stage floor seemed to vibrate beneath Lola's frail shoes. Mila squeezed her grandmother's hand, her eyes sparkling with pure joy. But Lola. She stood trembling. She had sung in church choirs as a girl, had hummed lullabies to her daughter, had whispered songs into the night to comfort Mila when the streets grew cold, but never had she imagined this. Thousands of people standing for her. For them. She blinked rapidly, forcing back tears. Then the applause slowly faded, and the judges leaned forward. Sophia was the first to speak. "My heart," she whispered, placing her hand over her chest. "You too, you sing with love. Pure love." Mila giggled, not fully understanding but delighted anyway. Howie gently added, "There's something sacred about what you just did. You transported us to another place." Heidi's eyes glistened. "I saw a story. I heard a lifetime in your voice, Lola. And Mila, your voice is like sunshine." The crowd cheered again. But Simon hadn't spoken yet. Lola's stomach tightened. She knew him by reputation, a man brutally honest, a judge who didn't give compliments easily. He sat perfectly still, his elbows resting on the desk, his index fingers touching as he studied the grandmother and the child before him. His eyes weren't harsh. They were searching. Then he finally spoke. "You too," he said slowly, "just reminded the world of something we forget too often." Silence stretched across the room. "You reminded us that the most powerful music doesn't come from perfect voices. It on 1010 comes from the heart." A soft gasp rippled through the crowd. Lola felt her knees wobble. She had spent years believing her voice had no worth anymore, that her age had made her invisible. And here was Simon Cowell, one of the most respected and feared judges in the world, telling her the opposite. She bowed her head, overwhelmed. But the moment wasn't finished. The voice that falters. The stage manager signaled that they could perform a brief encore if they wanted a small clip for the broadcast. The audience buzzed with excitement. "Would you like to sing a little more?" Heidi asked gently. Lola hesitated. Her throat felt tight. Her emotions were too raw. But then she saw Mila already nodding eagerly. "Yes." Mila chirped. "We sing." And with that childlike certainty, the music began again, soft, warm, familiar. Lola inhaled deeply. But the moment she tried to sing, her voice cracked. A painful crack. Like a fragile string snapping. She gasped quietly, placing a hand on her chest. The months of sleeping in the cold, the exhaustion, the nerves, they all collided at once. The audience collectively tensed. Sophia whispered, "Oh no." Howie frowned with concern. Even Simon rose slightly from his chair, watching carefully. Lola felt herself sway. Shame seeped into her bones. She was failing right here, on a stage millions would see. Her throat burned. Her breath shook. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Tears stung her eyes. She turned instinctively, as if ready to step away from the microphone, to flee, to hide, to disappear like she always had. But Mila didn't let go. Instead, the little girl stepped forward, tiny, brave, glowing with courage far bigger than her years. She took Lola's trembling hand with both of her own. And then she sang. "A child lifts the world." Her voice clear, bright, innocent filled the auditorium like a beam of light. Gasps rippled across the audience. She wasn't just singing the melody. She was carrying her grandmother through it. Lifting her. Supporting her. Each note soared, full of emotion the child didn't yet have words for. She sang with the kind of love only a child could hold, unconditional, pure, powerful enough to bridge generations. Lola's eyes widened, stunned by the strength coming from such a small body. Her granddaughter, her tiny Mila, was holding the song for both of them. The audience stood again. People cried openly, strangers wiping tears from their cheeks, couples holding hands, children watching in awe. Backstage, crew members stopped their work. Camera operators leaned forward, unable to look away. Music had done what nothing else could, it silenced an entire world. Mila gently tugged Lola toward the microphone. "Sing with me, Lola," she whispered. And somehow, hearing Mila's voice steady, fearless, gave Lola strength. Her voice returned, faint but brave. Together, they sang. A duet of fragility and innocence. Of age and youth. Of past and future. Of love that had survived homelessness, hunger, and heartbreak. By the final line, Lola was crying openly. Her tears dripped onto their intertwined hands. Mila reached up and wiped them with her little thumb. "It's okay, Lola," she said softly. "You did good." That simple sentence broke the last of the audience's composure. People sobbed. Even the judges. The golden decision. The applause that followed wasn't just loud, it was explosive. People stomped their feet. Some waved their hands in the air. Others yelled, "Golden buzzer! Golden buzzer!" Simon stood up slowly. He didn't look at the other judges. He looked only at Lola and Mila. He stepped forward, his eyes unusually shiny. "You two," he said, pausing as emotion caught in his throat, "are the reason this show exists." A hush fell. "You reminded us what humanity looks like. What love sounds like." Lola covered her mouth, her whole body trembling. Mila's hand clung to her skirt. Simon nodded once firmly, decisively. Then he reached forward. And slammed the golden buzzer. A shower of miracles. Golden confetti burst into the air, raining down in shimmering waves. The audience erupted into screams of joy. Lola collapsed to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. She had survived war, poverty, hunger, homelessness, but nothing had ever cracked her heart open like this moment. Mila knelt beside her, wrapping her little arms around her grandmother's shoulders. "Lola, look." She laughed, trying to catch the confetti. "It's falling like stars." Lola hugged her granddaughter tightly, burying her face in her hair as golden flakes stuck to their clothes, their hands, their hair. Simon walked onto the stage, something he rarely did. He approached slowly, respectfully, and knelt beside them. "Your story matters," he said. Softly. "You matter." Lola couldn't speak. She could only cry. The world watched as an elderly grandmother, once invisible, once forgotten, held her granddaughter beneath a shower of gold. A symbol of love. A symbol of resilience. A symbol of a miracle that had begun on a sidewalk. When the golden confetti settled and the thunder of the audience faded into a softer roar, Eleanor felt her knees weaken. Not from age this time, but from disbelief. Her trembling hand gripped little Lila's as if the child were the only real thing in a suddenly unreal world. "Grandma, we did it," Lila whispered, her big eyes searching Eleanor's wrinkled face. Eleanor cupped her granddaughter's cheeks with both hands. "No, sweetheart. You did it. You made the world listen." The lights dimmed as producers guided them backstage. Everyone, camera operators, stage crew, even security, paused to smile, clap, or dab tears from their eyes. Eleanor, who had spent the last decade being invisible on sidewalks and ignored at bus stops, now found every eye glowing with admiration. It felt overwhelming. And beautiful. Backstage magic. They were escorted to a quiet lounge where a warm blanket, steaming cups of cocoa, and a fresh set of clothes waited. Lila squealed as she saw the soft pink hoodie laid out for her. Eleanor touched it with a gentle hand. For us? A staff member smiled. Of course. After what you two did out there, this is the least we can do. Eleanor swallowed hard. She wasn't used to kindness being so freely given. She'd spent years stretching pennies, searching trash bins for cans, praying for one good day. She'd gotten used to being suspicious of generosity because in her world, nothing was ever free. But tonight felt different, tonight felt safe. As Lila changed into her new hoodie, she twirled around in front of the mirror. Grandma. Look. I look like a singer. Eleanor laughed softly. You are a singer, my love. Her voice cracked at the truth of it. A knock on the door. Minutes later, there was a knock. A producer popped his head in. Eleanor? Lila? There's someone who'd like to speak with you. Eleanor expected Simon. Or maybe a reporter. But when the door opened fully, it was a woman in an elegant navy blue suit, holding a folder to her chest, smiling warmly. Hello, Eleanor. My name is Grace. I'm from the Los Angeles Family Support Council. Eleanor's heart froze. These words usually meant trouble. Usually meant separation. Usually meant fear. She stepped protectively in front of Lila. We're fine. We don't need any trouble. Grace raised both hands in reassurance. No trouble at all. Quite the opposite, actually. She sat down gently, leaving space emotionally and physically for Eleanor to breathe. I saw your performance. And I saw the way your granddaughter looks at you. I just wanted to congratulate you both. And hand you this. She slid the folder across the table. Eleanor hesitated before opening it. Inside were forms. Letters. Documents stamped with official seals. And then, a confirmation notice. Eleanor's breath caught. Housing assistance approved. Emergency priority granted. Immediate placement available. Her vision blurred. This can't be real. Grace smiled softly. It's real. Your performance tonight went viral within minutes. Donations poured in from all over the country to support you and Lila. We matched it with emergency funds. She paused, voice softening. You won't be sleeping on the streets again. Eleanor covered her mouth with a shaking hand. Lila looked between the adults, confused. Grandma, what does it mean? Eleanor knelt down to her granddaughter's height. It means. Her voice cracked. It means we're going home, baby. Lila gasped and threw her tiny arms around Eleanor's neck. We have a home? Really? Eleanor nodded, holding her tightly. A heart repaired. As the emotions rippled through her, Eleanor realized something deeper. Tonight wasn't just about a golden buzzer, or applause, or cameras. Tonight was proof that the world still held kindness. That people still cared. That dreams, even the ones you're afraid to say out loud, can bloom again. For years she had carried a heart stitched together with worry and exhaustion. Tonight, those stitches loosened, and warmth filled the cracks. Simon's visit. A soft knock came again. This time, Simon Cowell himself stepped in. Lila gasped. Eleanor stiffened, unsure. But Simon approached gently, smiling in a way most people never got to see. Eleanor? She nodded. That was one of the most genuine, most moving performances I've ever witnessed. Eleanor blinked away tears. We just wanted to sing. Simon knelt beside Lila. And you, little one. You have a gift. A pure, untrained, beautiful gift. The kind that reminds people why music matters. Lila giggled and leaned into Eleanor. Simon stood and turned to Eleanor again. We'd like to feature your story on a special segment. It will help raise even more support. But only if you're comfortable. Eleanor, once doubtful of every stranger, found herself nodding. Yes. Thank you. Simon placed a hand over his heart. No. Thank you. The walk out the doors. Later that night, they walked through the backstage exit. But this time, they weren't walking into uncertainty. They weren't walking into cold winds or noisy streets. They were walking toward a car waiting to drive them to temporary housing, warm beds, clean clothes, real showers, and the promise of safety. Lila skipped beside her, holding Eleanor's hand. Grandma? Yes, sweetheart. Do you think Mommy will see us on TV? Eleanor looked up at the stars. Her daughter lost to addiction hadn't called in 2 years. But Eleanor never stopped praying for her. I think, she whispered, squeezing Lila's hand, wherever she is, she'll be proud of you. Lila smiled. I sang because you taught me. Eleanor stopped walking. Her throat tightened. Tears filled her eyes. She knelt in front of Lila, brushing a stray curl from her cheek. You saved me, you know that. You saved me. Saved you. Yes. You kept me going when I wanted to give up. And tonight, your voice, your heart. She choked on the words. It gave us a future. Lila hugged her tightly. A new beginning. Their car pulled away from the studio, vanishing into the Los Angeles night. And for the first time in years, Eleanor didn't feel the heaviness of survival weighing on her chest. For the first time in years, she let herself dream. A home. A stable life. Lila going to school. Music lessons. Maybe even singing on stage again. Not for fame. Not for money. But because music had given them something no one else had. Hope. Final message. As the city lights sparkled outside the window, Eleanor whispered into her granddaughter's hair, this world is still full of good people, my love. Never forget that. And in the quiet warmth of the car, with their hands intertwined, they began the first chapter of a life once thought impossible, but now beautifully real.